much easier and very much more plug in and play in terms of a gaming sense than it would on the PC, unless the gaming industry's changed so drastically, and I haven't played any of the more modern games, so please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to go through links. I'm trying to make sure with the things I have in hand, I'm trying to make sure it kind of fits the theme we go across. And one of the things I found is today we had a person who works on Compies. He's just published a couple of posts about the Wayland and the performance of the effects in without using the X server. And it's kind of interesting because he basically has to work differently just for Ubuntu mostly, because it's expected they will use Compies as the effects. Not sure if you could call it an engine or something, but at least the driver of all the special effects. And we have some new codes, and we have some new posts about new plugins and new effects in the desktop. And one of them says Linux is the best eye candy, but probably couldn't give the links because it's kind of not safe for work. But a person is trying to show you the different desktops that you get, proprietary versus Linux. And I kind of agree that still, if you're talking about from a very objective point of view, you talk about the complexity of things and how you use your graphics cards to do, it can be one card, it can be several cards, and one post, one person wrote about doing a four-head Ubuntu machine, Ubuntu 10.10 machine, which basically means it puts a quadruple display kind of in a big rectangle and trying to connect them all with several GPUs onto the system. It's all very interesting. I don't think it's possible quite to get that working with full effects in Vista. I know they had an issue where if you had different makes of a graphics card, you couldn't get Aero to work, but I'm not sure if they solved that. I'm not sure if it works in 7, but I've not seen any high performance multi-head computer with OS 10 or with Windows. I'm not even sure it's supported to the same extent it's supported in Linux. But and one of the things that you think about the very powerful computers, and you usually talk about games, but you barely talk about video rendering, although you usually have some separate component, not for drawing polygons or anything like that, but just for doing acceleration in hardware for frames. You don't think about it too often, but most of the video that you play on the computer would possibly use some kind of an offloading mechanism that puts it onto the hardware to handle all the processing of the graphics, and it kind of demands sometimes you use MPEG-4 to do that. But in any case, it would be quite nice, I think, if you had desktop actually exploiting your the power of your graphics card in some way that's also useful for work, for efficiency. People still struggle to demonstrate sometimes that having translucencies and spinning desktops and all that is a very useful thing. I mean, I personally just use blurring effects now because I find that if the desktop kind of starts twirling around, I kind of want to see where I can click next, and it's kind of distracting if you start to watch things move around and you don't really know where the pointer is going to land at the end. So sorry, I'm just moving to unless you have something important.
I was just going to add that the spinning cube is one of my favourite effects, not because it looks pretty, although it did while the novelty was there, but I find it so handy. It's one of the effects that I can't live without, as well as wobbly windows. I found that once I got hooked on them, I don't feel in control of my windows if they're not wobbling when I drag them around the desktop. Two things I can't live without now. But no,
you have to remember before you. I remember back in the days when I was using Linux. Not only would you have the very kind of rectangular type of interface, not a very liquid interface. But the other thing you had was the drawing that was done in X. You could actually see the windows being redrawn as you kind of drag around windows, or if you minimize something, you could actually see the things being drawn by lines or pixels, and it's kind of an ugly thing. It actually still is the case if you disable KWin or Compiz or any of the GPU using components, which is really hard to do. And when you watch that, it's really, really distracting. And it was one of the drawbacks of Linux back in the days when you argue with Windows people. One of the things that they had against Linux was the drawing of Windows, which was better, I think, in Microsoft Windows. In some sense, they could actually make it look smoother if you move Windows around and you didn't see the really weird effect that shouldn't happen. So that's gone. That's basically resolved because of the work they did on not just wobbly windows, but basically just redrawing of windows in a different way. But yeah, it's quite nice. And I should say that one thing that happened, it's not really major, but Xfce 4 has just reached, what is it? It's pre-1. It's 4.8 pre-1, which isn't a final release, but you still see them actually improving the desktop. I haven't seen any releases recently from the desktop.
I flirted with Xfce about a year or so ago when I was using Wolvix, but I've gone back to my favourite now, my favourite desktop. So I really don't keep up to date with that, and I should. What I would say, and I've just noticed this link which has been pushed to me. It's in regards to Wayland, on the subject of graphics. NVIDIA says it has no plans to support Wayland, and it's come from Phoronix's website. I don't know whether you've seen that. It's in an article, Roy.
I haven't seen this. I think it's pretty big story. I saw it. I saw it in about 3 places so far. I'm not sure I've seen the Phoronix bit, but this actually shows you probably do need a free software driver, and you probably have that. You won't get the same performance though. That's the issue. It might force Canonical to rethink the schedule, at least for a release with Wayland as the default server for graphics. But one thing I do see lots of now, they start to take it to turn it into a personal thing, and they talk about Mark himself, and one of the things they call him today is the Steve Jobs of Ubuntu, or the Steve Jobs of Linux. I'm not sure if it's a compliment. It's kind of, some people use it as a compliment, some people use it as a depends on your feeling towards Steve Jobs, but it's a tricky thing. I mean, there is a kind of a good analogy here, because if you consider what Apple was doing with BSD, and you consider what he's doing with the GNU/Linux system, how he basically picks some bits and pieces he can try and refine and work on, and try to build a system that's been branded differently and marketed a bit differently, and basically building a different package. In this case, they call it Ubuntu, and not so much Ubuntu GNU/Linux. And it kind of reminds you of Android. And I wrote an article today. I was tempted to write basically an article about how it feels like Ubuntu is gearing up towards packaging the software in such a way that they have copyrights over the components unique to Ubuntu. And I wrote a quick message to the chief operating officer of Canonical, and he replied a few times, and he was trying to clarify they actually do make money from giving support to the desktop, which lots of people don't seem to know about. I wasn't sure about it. And this is because quite a few people believe that Canonical is going to turn into a open core kind of semi-proprietary model, trying to make some money, but there is no evidence of you could see how they could try to pull that off, but we haven't actually seen any smoke yet. We obviously haven't seen any gun. We just see the possible preparation. Perhaps we saw some